Hello and welcome to another episode of the Lightning Studio podcast. I'm here today with Ksenija Markovic. I call her Seni, and she is the student president of Lightning Studio and also is always over there running the audio to make sure that we actually hit record, and no one is there this time, and that's why sometimes it screws
This
up.
audio sucks, that's why.
Can you tell me about where you're from and how you got to GBC and then what you do here now?
So I'm from Serbia, and I got to GBC 3 years ago to play tennis, originally just to play tennis in a GBC team. And right now I am working also as an intern for the BA program. I'm doing marketing stuff for them, video stuff. I also run Lightning Studio, as you said, and next year I'm about to be an RA.
Can you tell me a little bit about Serbia and like specifically like the city you're from and about it a little bit?
So I'm from Belgrade, which is the capital of Serbia. It's the biggest city, and overall it's a big city, pretty urban. I grew up in a kind of like a little bit isolated area, but it was still like an urban lifestyle. And Belgrade and the people who live in it are kind of known as people who like to party and just enjoy life, sit in coffee places for like 5 hours a day. And it's a lot different than here, any city that I know in America, where people are kind of like doing everything fast and running around. So yeah, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, I know. I know it only from the book that your mom gave me by Momo Kapur.
Kapor.
Yeah. Don't say any of the words, right?
Yeah.
Bravo, which means hi, but that's bad.
It's good.
That was good, I guess, that one time. But yeah, no, and it seems like such a lovely city, and his drawings in that book were so great, and I would love to go visit. I can't wait. Can you tell me a little bit about your tennis history and background and like how you got involved? Because that's how you got here to the U.S., but like back home.
So I started playing on the streets. I started playing badminton when I was little, and I remember I went to my dad and I was like bragging how I'm the best in the neighborhood in badminton and how I want to play professional. I want to practice badminton. And he was like, well, if we lived in some other country, maybe we could have a professional badminton, but that doesn't really exist in Serbia. So what about tennis? You want to try tennis? And I was like, yeah, I was 8 years old. And I knew what tennis was, of course, but I never thought about playing it. But I started practicing with a really good coach. And I really liked tennis. And soon I started competing for those like little junior tournaments. And I was never the best, to be honest, but I always liked doing it. I liked going to practices. I liked the whole part of it, like hanging out with your friends before and after practices, hanging all day on tennis courts. And soon my mom started running a tennis club, so we practically had a tennis club in front of my house. So I was spending all of my days there. Then I got to know like the not so fun side of tennis. Like I had to water the courts because we play on clay courts, so I had to water the courts on summer days like 20 times a day. So that's where I was like, oh my god, this tennis is, sometimes it can get to your head. But that's pretty much how I started to play and to compete and to love tennis. And then eventually I realized I always wanted to move to America for college, just because of the shows I watched and movies, and I always had that little dream. And I always kind of knew that I will do it, but I never knew that I can do it with tennis. So until like maybe year and a half before I actually went to America, I discovered that there is sports scholarships, and that is a thing that people do. So that's how I got to America with tennis.
So what was that like coming to the U.S. for tennis and like doing that with your family and making that decision?
So my family really wasn't kind of pushing me. They really had a politics of, we're going to stay out of there. If you need money, if we can afford it, we will. But we're not going to move our butt for that. We're not going to do nothing. We just have to do everything yourself. And until it came to the point when I actually really needed their help, like getting an right agency, not getting scammed and similar stuff. But when it comes to like choosing my classes for SAT, TOEFL, I had to do it all by myself, and I had to. It's kind of like they really wanted me to prove that I want to do it. So I would always like find a teacher for SAT and ask my mom, like, can you please buy me these classes? I might not go to America, but I just want to try. I want to have better English. But I knew that I will go, but I didn't want to get too excited because then they can start like pushing me.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be free the whole process. So up until the point, like when I had to choose college, they didn't get much involved. And I remember I used to get a lot of offers from the colleges that really had a kind of, not a bad feeling, but I wasn't really confident about, like some South Carolina colleges that I would look pictures and it would be all nice and sunny, but when I go to and speak to coaches and girls, everybody seems kind of conservative. So I was like, damn, I don't want to go to America and live like so much different than I used to live in my city. Like I don't want people to be like close-minded or this and that. So when I got an offer from Goldie, that was the first time when I was like, damn, I feel good about this college. And I don't even know what it was. Like I just had the feeling, and the coach Joe gave me that kind of reassurance that this is the place for me. Because I remember he said, we don't have like a big tradition as a tennis team. Like we are only 10 or so years old. So if you want to be a part of making history, then come to our team. And he was right about that. Like I literally wanted to be part of being there when history happens, when good things happen, when championships are won. And as we went to nationals last year, like he was really right about that.
And the tennis team has had a lot of success over the years, and a lot of that is because of the leadership and the family culture. Can you tell me a little bit about some of those people? Like, I'm sure you might not have known Nina much, but Raquel and Manuela for sure.
Yeah, well, first of all, Raquel was the one person that was there since the beginning, since I started recruiting process. Like, I needed that person that I can ask all the stupid questions, like 7 or 8 times a day, like the stupidest questions. And then I remember the situation when I had to get the vaccine for meningitis.
Meningitis, yeah.
Yes. And that was not available in my country. Like, you just don't get the vaccine. And I remember I was about to fly to another country to get it. But then somebody said, like, you might be able to get it in America. So when I landed here, Raquel was the one who was taking me to get my vaccine shots, to get my clothes, pillows, this and that. Like, she was showing us everything because she was there for so long. And Manuela, she was just, I don't know, like one of the best people I've ever met as, I think as a friend, teammate, mentor. Like she was just, it was amazing also to see her grow, like next to Nina and Raquel. I didn't see her grow next to Nina, but like to see her kind of like watching other people. She really took leadership seriously. She was watching other people kind of taking their techniques, adapting them to herself. She studied psychology, so she was so smart. She knew how to lead us, how to get to us. When I remember when she was our captain the first year, we lost our conference in fall, and then we went to nationals. And the way that happened is not really just about like tennis. Like, it's not like we practiced so much harder. She literally said to us, okay, now we're gonna pick this thing up. Like, we're gonna get our stuff together. We're gonna work on our mental health. We're gonna work on our inner mental game of tennis, as the book is called. Like, she literally made us all become aware of ourselves and our potential. And she was a lot more than just a team captain to us.
Yeah, that book, Inner Game of Tennis, it could work for all sports. We'll put that in the
it's a great book.
Description. It's just about the mental side of sports, specifically tennis. Manuela. I knew Raquel a little bit too, and they're amazing. And when we were working on, like, me and you were filming the documentary for Shaheen, Arthur, and Manu, I realized throughout it like how much impact she's had, specifically through like a lot of stuff that you said about like the tennis team and her like pushing forward her leadership style and the family culture of GBC, and a lot of that too you now really emulate through Lightning Studio. Can you tell me a little bit about like how you got started in Lightning Studio with like the videos you made for the tennis team and then the DBA, and now you've done our website?
So I I hurt my foot in pre-season of 2018, and that meant pretty much when I went to doctor, they told me it was a stress fracture. I gotta wear this ugly boot, and it meant pretty much that I have to sit out for the rest of the season. And Coach Joe, and I'm really grateful for this, he kind of embedded in us that mentality that even if you're sick, you don't stay in your room. If you're sick, of course, stay in your room. Especially now.
It's the coronavirus, so stay in your damn room.
Yeah, stay in your room if you're sick. No, I meant if you're injured and you can go to practice, you should go. You should be with your team, because that's all part of building team spirit and bond. And I remember I would go to practices and I would enjoy first couple of days watching girls play, but after that it becomes like, well, I want to play and this is boring. I don't want to watch, because it just frustrates me even more because I can't play. So out of boredom, really, I started filming with my iPhone. I started filming the practices and making these little funny videos. And I remember then I realized I can purchase like a software for editing. And so I don't have, when you try like free trials, you have like those weird watermarks and they were like just embarrassing. So I decided to buy actual software and start editing. And then I said, like, if I already bought it, let's get my money worth and like edit tons of videos with this. And I started editing literally a video about each person in the team. At that time, there was 9 of us. So I made 8 other videos for all of the girls, with like coaches talking about them, captain talking about them, and just highlights of their game. And they really taught me kind of like that simple side of editing. But it also taught me, I think it made me more productive. Like it made me do something, it made me feel useful in the team. And yeah, that's how I started with editing. And then you jumped in. At first I didn't want to ask you for help, because in Serbia we have this thing, I think it's just in our DNA, that we really don't want to ask for help when we don't have to. Like we are kind of like weak on that. I'm working on it. So I remember first I was too proud to ask you for anything, like to help me with editing. But then at the end, you involved me in some of the projects, like 48-hour film competition. Thank God it's not 24. And I remember I edited behind the scenes video, and that's how we really started to we edited it at the end together. We added a bunch of stuff. So that's how we started kind of collaborating. And I remember I didn't even think of taking over lighting studio because it's intimidating and it was scary. And I kind of like figured out you were always going to be there. I didn't realize you were graduating just because you were studying for a long time, Geoff. Too long.
Thanks. Thanks. Wasn't necessarily studying. But,
like 10 years or so. Like
Stop it. So,
but when I realized, okay, you're leaving, and you were kind of like going through a phase when you thought you don't have anyone to leave the lighting studio to, and I was editing videos and stuff, but I was like, yep, you probably don't have nobody. But then I remembered it came to a point when I was like, okay, maybe I can take over it, and you were confident enough to kind of say, okay, you're taking over next year. But still, I was intimidating, but just by the part of you used to organize so much stuff that I would never even think about starting even right now, like movie, show, like I would never even think about starting that right now. So I was intimidated by some of those big projects, but I had in mind what I want Lightning Studio to be, like some of the smaller projects that I know I can control and I can try to involve people in. So I think nobody planned for you to come back to college and for this to become this great, and that we can kind of like work both on what goes best for both of us, because this is the best possible outcome. Because now Lighting Studio, I think, is really strong. It's kind of like what you and Lorenzo wanted it to be when you started it. So yeah, I'm really happy you came back, so I don't have to take over the biggest projects, but I can still involve some students and I can help them, kind of just give them my experience, sit down one-on-one with them and tell them these are the softwares, these are the resources, this is how you reach out to people, this is how you get your name out there. Everything that I learned in kind of that short period of time.
Yeah. No, you're definitely a lot better at like working with those students one-on-one and getting them involved in some projects, because like you've mentioned before, like we don't have a lot of communications and media students, so it's tough to get them involved. And I'm kind of like got these crazy ideas, and like you know, I guess it's like, oh, he's going to do that thing, and you know, we'll go too because it might be a good time, but yeah, you never know. But yeah, no. One thing I'm really happy about is by the time this is released, we will definitely have it live. Is our website, the Lightning Studio. -gbc.com.
We still hope we're gonna have it live.
It will be live. It will.
No,
Yeah, but no, that's awesome, and you really did a lot for that, and it's so cool to have all of our work in one place and to showcase the work that you know, that you've done, that Lorenzo did, that Kyle Mapson did, the photos that Maria took, and our new photographers. You know, like just to have that home for all of, like, you know, all the content we've made, because a lot of people don't know that we've been involved in so many different areas over the years.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of our audience, or however you want to call it, like alumni, employees, current students, incoming students, like all of those people who would maybe come across Lightning Studio content, they're on all of these different platforms. And sometimes it happens that, like, I send out link to a Flickr album and say to everybody, I took these pictures, but people still don't manage to see it because they don't look at the email or the Facebook. So I think that there should be a place where everything is there on one place. So I think the website is going to be like a great, it's not even a project, it's just a thing that was kind of necessary at this point, just to put all of the stuff together.
Yeah, it's been 3 years in the making. Definitely. And everything has just shifted, like you mentioned before, like where Lightning Studio is in a really good place. And I think a lot of it comes from the leadership of the college. You know, Colleen really sees the value of Lightning Studio, and for you as a student, and seeing kind of, you know, from the outside and now the inside of Lightning Studio and GBC, what do you think her impact has been like?
Well, first of all, Lightning Studio really started as a club organization. I like to think of it now as something a little bit more, because I think we provide kind of value that is necessary in this day and age for organization to have. So, like organization of higher education. Yeah. And I think that was always appreciated by leadership and by employees. But I think with her coming, there's like actual stuff being invested into our just energy being invested, even money. Like, also shout out to Chuck and all the student affairs for helping us purchase some of the equipment. There's been a real talk about change, and you can feel the real change in vision. And I think that really with Colleen and the like new leadership that came to Goldie Beacon College, I think Lightning Studio really got the appreciation, and kind of value of it has been recognized.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I do want to give a huge shout out to Chuck. He'll probably not get through this whole thing. We'll see. But years ago, the first 2 weeks of Lightning Studio's existence, Welcome Weekend 2017, I had a drone, and he was like, let's organize to make a GBC shape on the soccer field. Everyone get over there. Everyone's seen the picture. You know, we flew the drone up there and we figured it out. And I remember, like, you know, just kind of talking to him, and I was like, yeah, just kind of mentioned out of the side, like, you know, yeah, the drone only has one battery and it only lasts like 30 minutes. And he was like, well, how much is another battery? And from there, like, he has been the #1 supporter over the last couple of years, like, just for everything that we've ever wanted to do, like, best dean of students, you know, of all time. And he's one of the main reasons why I wanted to come back to GBC, and just like the change that he's made over the years that he's been here, I don't think anyone can really measure. And I think it's definitely exciting times.
Started with the battery. Now we're here.
Yeah, started with a battery, and you know, now we're turning even more legit. So
now we have lights for the podcast.
Yeah, we have lights for the podcast.
All these mics and everything.
For all the other videos that we do, yeah. And really, it just feels like it's in a really good place, and luckily we're a good platform to provide content and stories of GBC still in this situation with the coronavirus, and everybody had to go home, and you know, all this. We're kind of
well, I think the good thing about me and you is that we start on more projects that we can actually finish. Yeah. So we go out and film a bunch of stuff, and then as you in every podcast, I notice that you have to mention at least one project that is into making, and promise that you're gonna make them. And I think this whole thing, the quarantine, us for being forced to stay inside, except today when we actually get to like do stuff at college. I think that we can provide a lot of content because we can finish stuff that we started a long time ago. And I feel like that's also the value of Lighting Studio, that we don't have to necessarily stop with the if the whole world stops, like we still can share stories, because there are still stories from the quarantine, from the isolation, from different parts of the world. So yeah, I agree that.
Yeah. Well, you are great for Lighting Studio, and you have made it so much better, and as well as GBC here, and my life, of course. And I just want to thank you for coming on the podcast and for everything that you've done for Lighting Studio, and look forward to a great future.
Thank you, Geoff.
Awesome.